There once was a comic book writer named Frank Miller, and he wrote some comics that you may have heard of, like Batman Year One, Dark Knight Returns, Daredevil Born Again. You may have heard a few of those. And they were regarded as pretty good comics. Some may even say great. Some may even say some of the best comics those characters have ever even seen. But then he surpassed them all by writing the masterpiece that is All-Star Batman and Robin. One of the best comic books ever written that is unanimously agreed upon by every single comic fan and critic that this is one of the best comics ever. And we never got a sequel, sadly, which sucks because this was a new Frank Miller, different than the same guy that wrote Born Again, but still had some of those Miller-esque qualities. And we never got a sequel to it. But now we're getting this same Frank Miller writing a Superman book called Superman Year One. And it is just as good as All-Star Batman and Robin. The quality of it is just fantastic. And also, you don't have that distractingly beautiful, detailed art from Jim Lee. Instead, you have John Romita Jr., who draws some very nice skinny legs. But where are the legs? They're right there. They're very... Look at that. Look at how much just pure muscle. No fat on there at all. Just perfect right there. And I mean, just look at these beautiful covers. They don't compare at all to the Frank Miller tumor variant for issue number 2, though. You see that nice little tumor that's put there towards Superman's stomach? I think that might be a nod to something in the future in the series. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. But Frank Miller is a genius that likes to put nods and Easter eggs into his variant covers. But yes, Superman Year One has been a fantastic read so far. So, a lot of people, if you've been around for the channel a while, you've probably heard me talk about All-Star Batman and Robin. That's because when it came out, well, when I first read it, I read it thinking that it was going to be, oh, it's a new origin for, when I read it when I was a kid, I was like, oh, it's a new origin for Batman and Robin. Cool, I can't wait. It looks so cool. I read it. I was like, what is this? Did not enjoy it whatsoever. Then I reread it with a different mindset, sort of like how MST3K watches movies. That's how I read this book right here, and I enjoyed it a lot more. And that's what I've been doing with Superman Year One. I read the first issue. I was like, this is bad. It is just bad. But now I read the second issue, and I read it more in the vein of All-Star Batman and Robin, how I read that book. I'm like, okay, it's so bad it's good. Like, it's just so stupid and just modern day Frank Miller to a T that I'm actually enjoying it. Not as a Superman comic, but just as this terrible book. It's so bad it's good. I'm enjoying it because of that. So let's get into it. Spoilers for these issues if you haven't read them. I know a lot of people don't want this amazing, immaculate story spoiled for them. But I've already talked about issue 1 on a stream before with Wes and a bunch of other guys, so that was fun. So I won't be going totally into issue 1. I'll be going a bit more into issue 2. Also, issue 2 is more fresh in my mind. I just read it. So issue 1, we see that when Clark comes from Krypton, he comes down and he's wearing a nice little do-rag. Jonathan Kent finds him, and he mind controls Jonathan Kent because Frank Miller's Superman has mind control powers. Makes you wonder how during the whole Dark Knight Returns thing, he didn't know about all the traps that Batman had planned. If he could read minds, he'd just go into his mind and be like, oh, Green Arrow's hiding with a kryptonite arrow. Okay, I know to avoid that. Oh, he's going to go, electrocute me through this way. Okay, I'm just going to avoid all this stuff. But apparently in Dark Knight Returns, Superman forgot about that because this Superman is connected to the Dark Knight Returns Superman. This is all in the Millerverse. Miller has said it himself, even though the timelines don't really make sense with how when the Dark Knight Returns take place, where this is modern day with cell phone stuff. It doesn't really make sense, but Frank Miller did say this is the origin for the same Superman that's in Dark Knight Returns. So it's all the Millerverse. But anyways, yeah, Superman has mind control powers. Baby Superman with his do-rag controls Jonathan Kent and tells him to take him home. And the commentary on this entire book is really creepy and weird. I don't get it. There's not a whole lot of dialogue in the book. The majority of it is just, I don't know if it's supposed to be a person or what, but it's just this narration from I don't know who, like, and it's this creepy narration. Like, it reads in the first issue. Here, let me find this real quick. When Clark comes down and Jonathan Kent, finds a little do-rag baby, he goes, John Kent feels something probe inside his skull. A gentle warmth makes him feel like his brain is floating. The boy coos, pleased. This is not a hostile. Let him take you to your new home. Let him think this is all his idea. That's so creepy. And when I first read that, I was like, what's going on? But now, reading it more in the vein of All-Star Batman Robin, it's like, this is so terrible. I like it. But yeah, then the entire first issue like takes place in Smallville, and Frank Miller has no clue how people from Kansas talk. They all talk like a very country simpleton people. Like, what? It's just like, there's a group of bullies that come by and like yell at Clark and all his nerd outcast friends. There's like, you stupid toolsters. Yeah, they call them toolsters. I guess that's just how people from Kansas talk. And then in issue number 2, Superman gets a little pissed because he keeps getting hit by stuff, and he says, you guys are starting to honk me off. I don't know what that means. I don't know why he couldn't say like, I'm ticked off or pissed off or something like that. I think that would be appropriate, but honk me off, I don't think Frank Miller's ever been to Kansas, or like, I just don't think he has any clue what people from there sound like, because it's just the way anyone from Kansas talks is just so much like just a stupid simpleton. His dialogue is oof, but thankfully there's not a whole lot of dialogue. It's just a lot of this weird sort of like God narrator. The way he talks about things is so odd. It's so alien. Like, he's like, he sort of talks about things sometimes from Clark's perspective. Like, so at the end of issue 1, Clark enrolls in the Navy. He wants to go become a Navy SEAL. Then in issue 2, like almost the entire issue is him going through Navy training and then SEAL training. So he's going through training, and when he's doing it, like, you see him looking around, and John Romita Jr. draws him with like no facial expression at all. He's lifting this log. He's like this. He's doing push-ups in the water. He's like this. Everyone around is like sweating and stuff. Like, Clark doesn't try to hide his powers at all. Like, in the first issue, he beats up a bunch of kids who are mean to his friends. And like, doesn't even try. He flies around Smallville. Even some guy spots him, and his wife's like, "Oh, you're crazy seeing flying people." He doesn't care at all about anything. And yeah, he doesn't try to hide his identity. It sort of reminds me of Amazing Spider-Man, those movies, how Andrew Garfield like never wore his mask, and it was like, it didn't seem like he cared. Or when he dunked and broke the basketball hoop, it's similar to that, where it's like, yeah, he doesn't care about his secret identity at all. That's how Superman is in this. He doesn't care at all, but he's going through Navy training, and the narration is talking about, he's like, everyone around him is just sacks of meat. He looks at them and he sees how vulnerable they are. I'm paraphrasing, but it's very much similar to that, where he's just like, they're so vulnerable and weak. Everything is so hard for these sacks of meat. As Clark looks around at them, it's like, what is this? Is this like how Clark's thinking? Because you sometimes get in the mind of Clark, but then most of it's this narrator. And again, the narrator is really weird. But in issue 2, he's going through buds. He's going through, SEAL training. He's doing all this stuff. And then when they're out there, he spots some mermaids. And so he goes off to visit the mermaids. And it looks like Atlantis is where the mermaids live. And Atlantis has been destroyed by a submarine from the Navy that was experimental and crashed. And I guess they just left that there, all this experimental tech or whatever. The U.S. government's just like, we'll just let it sink to the bottom of the ocean. No one will ever find it. It just fell on this Atlantis. And so Superman goes and he saves them. And he's like, I'm going to go and I'm going to prop everything up and fix their town. And he falls in love with a mermaid, which I think was like sort of a throwback to John Byrne's run, because during John Byrne's run, Superman fell in love with a mermaid. But it's a lot different. It's a lot more organic. And this, like, love at first sight, they're in love. Like, she says, I'm going to be your queen. You need to stay here forever. And he's like, oh, I got to go back to the Navy. I'll be back later. And so he leaves. And then he fails out of buds because he got in a bar fight because he's talking to a reporter, and some dude with a green mohawk came and hit on her. Let me see if I can find, I feel like that guy said something really stupid to her. Like something very, very realistic that everyone says when they're trying to hit on a chick at a bar. Let me see if I can find that real quick. Where is it? Did I miss it? Oh, yeah. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, no. It's what he says to Clark. So Clark is talking to this reporter lady. This dude with a green mohawk and tattoos comes up because, every douchebag has a green mohawk and tattoos. And he comes up and he's like, hey, baby, want to come get loose with me? And Clark's like, leave her alone. And he, grabs his arm. And the guy goes, made me drop my beer, kill you. That's what he says. I think everyone's been around belligerent, drunk people. But this guy, Clark grabs his shoulder and he's like, made me drop my beer, kill you. There's no I'll kill you or anything. I know, he's drunk. He's not thinking about grammar, but made me drop my beer, kill you. Kill you bad is actually how the next panel. Made me drop my beer, kill you bad. How could you kill someone good? That's what I want to know. It's just great. And then Clark proceeds to just beat the crap out of everyone. He takes the guy and throws him into 3 other dudes. Instead of just grabbing him and subduing him, Clark's like, nah, let me just throw him into other people that have nothing to do with me. Let's just do that. And because of that, later on he gets dishonorably discharged. But anyways, through his SEAL training, he trains with this one guy who also has hair one panel, then doesn't have hair the other. So it's weird because I thought it was a different guy, but they say his name because in the background of one panel, you see the guy that he's training with. Well, no, not in the background. So you see the guy that he's training with, and in the background you see another guy that has hair. So it's like, oh, I thought it was that guy because there's only 2 black guys in his SEAL training. So I'm like, oh, he was training with this guy, now he's training with this guy. But then they say the name, I'm like, oh, it's the same guy. So for some reason he's bald, and then the next page he has hair. And it's supposed to be the same day of them training. But anyways, he beats the crap out of this dude throughout their training. They're training, and Clark thinks he's like, maybe I should let him pummel me, but nah, I really want this job. He couldn't make it competitive at all. Clark, throughout his entire training, he's running 10 yards ahead of everyone. He's doing 50 more push-ups than everyone. He beats the crap out of everyone in when they're doing their combat training. When he does his when he's at the range, he doesn't miss a shot. Literally every single bullet goes through the same hole, like Robin Hood splitting an arrow. He's perfect at everything. He doesn't care. He doesn't try to hide it at all. It doesn't make any sense. He even talks how Pa Kent told him not to show off and stuff, but all he does is show off. But anyways, he gets discharged because of that bar fight that happened. He gets honorably discharged. And then he goes off into the ocean to visit his mermaid friend that he met for an hour that he was in love with. He goes there, they bang immediately. What is the narration? Let's see if I can find it. It's something about them kissing and then the ocean bed shattered. Let's see. And he's laughing too, and he kisses her, and all the world is magic, and he touches her, and the seabed shakes. That's a narration of Superman banging a mermaid. From Frank Miller, the guy that wrote Daredevil Born Again. So Superman met this mermaid for an hour, peaced out for a week, got honorably discharged, went back, banged her, and now he's in Atlantis, and her dad is Poseidon, and Poseidon does not like him because he's like, hey, Superman, you're here to take my throne. And Superman, we actually get some narration inside his head. We actually hear what Superman's saying. It's not just the weird god commentator, narrator, whoever it is. It's actually Superman because the box is blue now. We see that Superman, he's referring to himself. And he's like, I don't want to be king. Ha ha ha, that would be stupid. Clark Kent, king of Atlantis. Ha ha ha, maybe I do want to be king. And that's his inner narration. And so he goes, and we see that Poseidon's daughter, who Clark banged, Poseidon now wants to bang. He tells her, he's like, you're my princess and my bride. You're my princess bride. You're going to take the place that your mom had before she died. And I was like, what the hell? So Poseidon's into incest, so that's interesting. Maybe that's a part of Greek mythology or whatever that this mythology is. I don't know. I never got into it that much. I never read into the Atlantis mythology, so maybe incest is a big thing for Poseidon. I don't know. Either way, in this it is. He wants to bang his daughter, so he calls a baby kraken to fight Clark. Clark just shoots it off. Then a big kraken comes, and Clark just shoots it off again. And then he takes his daughter, and he's like, hey, she's mine now. And then he becomes king of Atlantis, and Poseidon rides off, and I believe that's how it ends. Yeah, Poseidon rides off with his krakens. And that's the end of it. And Clark's talking about how he could stay in Atlantis forever with this girl that he met a week ago, and he's spent 2 hours with. So yeah, that's where we're at in Superman Year One. It's great, and literally, it's really given me some insight in how Frank Miller wrote Superman during Dark Knight Returns. Because during Dark Knight Returns, Superman isn't Superman at all. He's just this government stooge that does whatever the president tells him, and doesn't really isn't for truth, justice, and the American way at all. And in this, I see that. Like, Clark's very selfish and does whatever he wants in both issues. He doesn't really care about anything. The contrast between this and, say, Jeff Johns' Secret Origin is huge. For instance, there's a page in Secret Origin where Clark, it's been a while since I've read it, but Clark, like 10 years old or something, he's playing football and he accidentally breaks his friend's arm. He didn't mean to. He accidentally breaks his arm and he's like scarred, like he doesn't want to play football anymore, even though he really wants to play with his friends, but he like really doesn't want to accidentally hurt anyone. And this, Clark doesn't care about that at all. He beats dudes up. He does whatever he wants. When he's playing football, he has 4 guys jump on him and carries them all to the end zone because, you know, he doesn't care about secret identity or anything. And it's just like the contrast here is great. Like, seriously, if you want to see a big contrast, read Secret Origin, then read Year One. And it's just like, it's like night and day. But Miller's just, focus. But Miller's just, he's a genius. That's what Frank Miller is. He's a genius with how he wrote this amazing book. But yeah, I can't wait to see how issue 3 goes with everything that Frank Miller's been doing. It's been fun to read just because how bad it is, and the art by Romita Jr. is just so, it's better than Frank Miller's art. I'll say that because I don't like Frank Miller's art, but it's just so, it's so weird. Like John Romita Jr. has always been a guy to me that, like, when drawing like masks, he's okay. Like I liked him on Spider-Man, like him and J. Michael Straczynski, however you say his last name, run, I liked because he's drawing mask characters for the most part with Spider-Man. But when he tries to draw faces or any type of features, it's terrible. And he's only gotten worse. I feel like John Romita Jr. has gotten worse, not better, which is really bad for an artist. But yeah, that's it for my video on Superman Year One. I might make a video when the whole storyline wraps up. I'm not sure. I just want to talk about it because it's so crazy and bad, but it's hilarious. But yeah, if you guys have been reading Superman Year One, let me know in the comments below. What are your thoughts on the book? Have you guys been enjoying it? Do you hate it? If you hate it, I understand. Or do you enjoy it like I do because it's so just terrible? It's fun to read and make fun of. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys later.